This is the hardest test Indiana's record-setting offense could have drawn next. The Fever have produced 12 games with at least 100 points, more than any team in a single WNBA season, and now they return to the coach whose staff held Caitlin Clark to 6. Indiana arrives in Portland with two receipts that seem to contradict each other. The first came on July 28th. The Fever defeated Seattle 105-95 for their fourth consecutive 100-point performance. Clark finished with 32 points, 4 rebounds, and 7 assists. Kelsey Mitchell added 28, including 18 in the fourth quarter. The second receipt is still sitting in the May 30th box score. Portland, 100. Indiana, 84. Clark played 21 minutes and 44 seconds. She made one of 7 shots, missed both of her three-point attempts, collected 5 fouls, and scored 6 points. Friday isn't a generic rematch. It's a test of whether Alex Sarama's Clark-specific plan can survive the new version of Indiana's offense. The Fever and Fire have already split 2 meetings, but neither game offers a complete guide to the third. Indiana won the opener, 90-73 on May 20th while Clark was sidelined. Aaliyah Boston scored 24 points with 8 rebounds, and Mitchell supplied 21. Portland couldn't impose the disruptive style that had defined its promising start as an expansion team. 10 days later, the setting changed. Clark returned. Portland played at home. The Fire won by 16. Afterward, Sarama admitted that neutralizing Clark had been a key part of Portland's preparation. He credited his assistants, including Brittany Donaldson, whose scout became part of a collaborative plan built around what Sarama called out-of-the-box ideas. That distinction matters. Portland didn't benefit from Clark missing ordinary shots while leaving the rest of its strategy untouched. The Fire designed both ends of the game around making her uncomfortable. On defense, Portland pressured Indiana's organization before Clark could establish it. The Fire disrupted entry points, challenged passing angles, and forced the Fever to start their offense under strain. Then, Portland brought the pressure back at Clark on the other end. Stephanie White acknowledged that the Fire attacked the matchups they wanted, pulling Indiana into rotations and contributing to its foul trouble. Clark gave an even more direct explanation. Portland hunted isolations, and when Indiana switched, the Fire exploited the new matchup. That meant Clark was being tested twice during the same possession cycle. First, she had to work through Portland's pressure to organize Indiana's offense. Then she had to absorb targeted actions when the Fire brought the ball back the other way. Every defensive switch gave Portland another chance to place her at the center of the play. The foul count became part of the strategy's effect. Clark collected 5 in fewer than 22 minutes, limiting how aggressively she could defend and how long White could leave her on the floor. Portland scored 52 points in the paint. The Fire erupted for 37 in the third quarter. Indiana's rotations arrived late, the open player kept changing, and Portland converted each advantage before the defense recovered. Clark didn't hide from her role in it. She said she needed to move her feet better when Portland hunted those isolations. She also credited the Fire for finding an answer against every coverage Indiana tried. But one successful game doesn't create a permanent blueprint. Clark shot 1 for 7. Her foul trouble shortened her night. Indiana's substitution pattern removed Clark and Boston together during an early Portland run. The Fever struggled to make threes, and their defensive problems gave the Fire repeated chances near the basket. Each factor helped create that 6-point result. Treating it as proof that Sarama can erase Clark on command would stretch one night beyond what the evidence supports. Sarama's explanation was more precise. Portland built a plan to slow one of basketball's best offensive threats, and the players executed it. Friday tests whether they can execute it again. The version of Indiana returning to Portland has changed in one crucial area. It can now move the scoring burden between 2 guards without stopping the offense. Seattle saw that exchange happen across 2 quarters. Clark controlled the third. She attacked the rim, punished open space from outside, and forced the Storm to focus its defense on her. Seattle stayed close, and the fourth quarter demanded a different answer. That's when Mitchell supplied it. Mitchell scored 18 of her 28 points in the final period. She hit from outside, created separation in the middle of the floor, and kept attacking after Seattle shifted its attention. Clark and Mitchell combined for 60 points, but the total doesn't explain the problem they created. The sequence does. Indiana didn't need both guards to dominate every possession at the same time. It needed one to bend the defense, then the other to recognize when control had changed hands. Mitchell described playing beside Clark as a flow state. Her job, she said, was to fill the gaps and give Clark what the possession required. Sometimes that means cutting. Sometimes it means moving the ball. In Seattle, it eventually meant taking over, and that's the two-engine test facing Portland. The May plan succeeded because Portland concentrated pressure around Clark and made Indiana operate through the consequences. When the first action stalled, the Fever struggled to find the next advantage. Once Clark became the defender Portland wanted to attack, Indiana's entire structure had to react. Now the Fire must decide how much attention they can commit to Clark before Mitchell receives a cleaner floor. Load two defenders toward Clark, and Mitchell can attack the second side before Portland resets. Deny Clark the return pass, and Mitchell can keep the possession instead of acting as a temporary release valve. Pressure Clark for 94 feet, and Indiana can use that attention to open space elsewhere. Yet the Seattle performance also exposed the tension inside Indiana's success. The Fever reached 105, but portions of the second half became dependent on individual scoring. Clark carried one stretch. Mitchell carried the next. Against Seattle, that was enough. White's preferred offense looks different. She wants the ball moving from side to side, paint attacks followed by the next pass, and 5 players forcing the defense to rotate. When Indiana holds the ball or dribbles without creating an advantage, the offense becomes easier to contain. That's where Sarama will see an opening. Portland doesn't need to prevent every Clark or Mitchell basket. It needs to disrupt the connection between them. If Clark beats the first defender but can't deliver the next pass on time, the Fire can recover. If Mitchell catches without an advantage and has to restart the possession, Portland has already won several seconds. When Indiana's supporting players hesitate, the two-engine offense becomes 2 separate isolation attacks. Sarama's system is built to create that hesitation. He describes Portland's approach as structured basketball that produces moments of unstructured creativity. Players receive principles instead of a rigid list of predetermined answers. They're expected to recognize the available advantage and act before it disappears. That philosophy shaped the May win. After Indiana defeated Portland in the first meeting, Sarama said he hadn't prepared his team well enough to handle the Fever's switching defense. Portland arrived at the rematch with a sharper solution. 2 quick passes could beat the switch. The first moved the ball away from pressure. The second attacked the 4-on-3 before Indiana recovered. Megan Gustafson's screening and sealing gave Portland another way to turn those passes into space near the rim. Gustafson finished with 22 points and made all 8 of her field goal attempts. She wasn't the player Indiana's defense intended to free. She became the beneficiary of how Portland manipulated the matchup around Clark and the help behind her. That's another reason Friday can't be reduced to Clark against a single defender. Portland's plan was collective. Its pressure required guards to deny easy organization. Its matchup hunting required screeners to bring the desired defender into the play. Its spacing required shooters to hold Indiana's help. Its interior players had to finish after the defense shifted. Indiana's counter must be collective as well. Clark's shooting range can drag Portland away from the basket. Mitchell's scoring can punish a tilted floor. The first meeting showed that the Fever can win without Clark controlling every possession. Boston and Mitchell led that 90-73 victory. That result should prevent Portland from treating the series as one equation with one variable. Boston's availability for Friday remains unresolved after she left the Seattle game and didn't return for the second half. White gave no diagnosis after the game and said keeping Boston out was the conservative choice. Until Indiana releases an official update, her role in the rematch can't be assumed. Her status could change the geometry of the entire contest. Boston's screening, interior scoring, and decision-making give Indiana a third point of organization. Without her, Portland can devote more attention to the guards and test whether Indiana's replacement frontcourt can make the connecting plays. The uncertainty places even more weight on Mitchell. Portland has already seen what happens when Clark is absent. Indiana can place the ball in Mitchell's hands, play through the paint, and win by 17. The Fire have also seen what happens when Clark plays, but the structure around her breaks. They can hold Indiana to 84 and turn Clark's night into a battle against pressure, switches, and fouls. What Portland hasn't seen in this series is Clark creating at her July level while Mitchell closes the game as an independent scorer. The first defensive adjustment will tell us plenty. Portland can deny Clark the ball before she crosses half court, or wait until she enters the action. Sarama can switch the same plays that produced favorable matchups in May, or change the coverage before Indiana targets it. The next detail will matter even more. When Portland sends extra pressure, Indiana needs Mitchell to receive the first release pass. Once she catches it, she has to attack before the Fire can rotate, rather than waiting for Clark to reclaim the possession. The difference may be measured in less than a second. Sarama has praised Portland's ability to create advantages through immediate decisions. Indiana must apply the same principle against his defense. Catching the ball isn't enough. The next action has to begin while Portland remains outnumbered. A hesitation gives the Fire time to rebuild their shell. One quick pass keeps the advantage alive. A second can turn Clark's double team into a Mitchell drive, a corner three, or an interior finish. That's how Indiana can punish a plan designed around Clark without asking her to shoot through it. The Fever's scoring record shows they've found answers against many defensive styles. 12 games at 100 or more can't be reduced to one hot shooting night. 4 consecutive 100-point performances show the offense entered the Portland trip with sustained momentum. Those numbers still don't guarantee the same mechanism will travel. Portland held Indiana 21 points below the Fever's Seattle total in the previous meeting. The Fire forced the game into the exact areas where Indiana looked least connected: slow rotations, foul pressure, delayed passes, and possessions that depended on Clark rescuing the structure. The record proves Indiana's ceiling. The 6-point box score preserves Portland's challenge. Friday will reveal whether the Fever changed the parts of the matchup that mattered. If Indiana still switches without protecting the targeted defender, Portland can return to the same pressure point. If Clark has to absorb repeated defensive actions before starting the offense, the Fire can drain her legs and increase the threat of foul trouble. If Mitchell waits for Clark to solve each possession, the second engine exists only on paper. But if Mitchell attacks while Portland's defense is still tilted toward Clark, Sarama's original plan may create the openings Indiana now wants. That's the trap inside aggressive coverage. Every added defender leaves another player with space. The defense survives only when its rotations arrive before the offense makes its decision. Seattle couldn't maintain that race for 4 quarters. Clark broke the game open in the third, then Mitchell took the final period. Indiana moved from one scorer to the other and finished with 105. Portland's task isn't to choose which guard it would rather stop. It must prevent the handoff. Indiana's task is just as specific. The Fever don't need to prove that May was meaningless. They need to show that the May plan now carries a price. The third meeting begins July 31st in Portland with the regular season series tied at 1 game apiece. One side owns the WNBA scoring record, the other owns the 6-point receipt. Friday decides which one travels.